So last fall, I think it was, a few of my colleagues in the audio team, in the spare time, because they were bored, they decided to build a 3D city, because that's what you do when you're bored, right? Right, true. Those two, right? Minecraft and 3D city. Like it's Thursday day, I'm going to 3D city. So what it has as well, it has audio that's being synced with the ship flying around. But everything you see here is JavaScript. It's just WebGL drawing things on a canvas in a three-dimensional context. And all the things that you see on the buildings as well, like the videos and pictures, etc., are being retrieved live. I mean, this is a video, but if you go to the actual website, it's live. So you just specify a hashtag that, you know, if you want to have Sao Paulo as a hashtag, you can have all the videos and pictures, etc., that has that hashtag live. Someone else decided to do a walking skeleton. I always wondered about the top slider, like female or male. Is that a slider? I kind of thought it was an on-off thing. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, I don't know. And actually when you have something like this, you want to max out the different values. So what if you have a female, light, nervous, happy walk? Kind of giddy. But the idea here is that it's quite easy. So you just have a different number of points, and that's the way you work with it. So you have these different points on the skeletons, you just draw textures on top of those points. You don't need that many points, it's just those things that are moving. And we also drew this 3D face, and this is a bit scary actually, because it starts becoming too realistic. Like when you do the screen test of this, I'm just terrified it's going to wake up. But again, it's all just JavaScript. Google will work on this project. It's released under another name right now. But basically, if you have a body and you want to look through it, you know, you can zoom in and look around. But Google's strength here, of course, is search. So if you go for legs, you can get a shine through or cut through of the actual body and see the different parts. And if you search for biceps, you know, you have biceps in your legs too, apparently, you can see exactly what they look like. And the nice thing here is that, you know, now it's actually becoming useful. You know, a ship in a 3D city, that's fine. But this is actually something that, you know, you can see parts. You can use this as a doctor or a nurse, or if you're just curious. Coding with WebGL, though, it's pretty different. It's basically a lot of math and a lot of different values, like a lot of math. And you know, if this makes you happy, that's fantastic. But you know, sometimes you just want to get things done. So the idea here, and as you saw, for instance, with the 3D face, is there's a library called 3JS, and 3JS is just trying to make it as easy for you as possible to do things in 3D. So they have lots of different examples on how you start drawing things. And usually when we talk about all the things, you get questions. Usually not questions like this, but well, you know, my reply would be yes. But, I don't know. And when you get these questions, it's always like, is HTML5 ready? That's the question year after year. And you know, the other question, is it going to be around? Is it worth me wasting my time learning this, and then it's going to die? So talking about if it's ready, it's in all the major web browsers, and all major web browser vendors are putting a lot of money and a lot of time into doing it. Like everyone has agreed that this is the way we should do it. You can always bicker about details, but as a whole, this is the direction we're going in. And looking at mobile phones as well, that in iOS and Safari and iOS is getting better and better. Unfortunately, the only browser you can have on that phone. And looking at Android and looking at BlackBerry as well, but it's getting richer and richer, especially if we talk about Android. That Firefox on Android, and we're going to have a pretty good beta in a few weeks, I hope, with a native UI that is quite fast. And if you look at Google Chrome beta on Android, it's really good too. So there you have two quite powerful web browsers. So you have choice and performance on a mobile phone. And also, and I heard that before, that well, I hope it's true, that in Brazil that people aren't very good at updating their web browsers, and that's that could be a problem. But there's also something referenced to as a polyfill, and the idea with a polyfill is that's like we saw before, talking about WebSockets, Socket.io and similar. And what it does, a polyfill, is to check in the web browser, does it support WebSockets, or does it support Canvas, or something like that? If yes, use that. But if it doesn't, fall back to something else that works in a web browser. Do whatever you can, but make sure it works. So you have all of these different polyfill libraries that just list different options for you to work with it. Another website is caniuse.com, and this website is basically just enter a feature you want to look for, and you can see which web browser support it, and also how long they've supported it. I think it goes at least 2 versions back. So you can also see that, okay, how long has this been around, and also how many web browsers have agreed to implement this. If it's only one, it kind of gives you, some kind of know-how about, probably not a good idea right now. And the other question is going to be around, we were talking about web browsers before, if we talk about the companies with all the money in the entire world, more or less, they're all betting on it as well. If you're looking at Microsoft and you look at Windows 8, then you're going to build HTML5 apps in Windows 8 as native apps on that platform. Google has been doing it for a long time. Apple is doing it as well, especially if you talk about different iOS devices. Facebook is building a lot of things with HTML5, and Adobe, last year, actually even a year ago, they bought Nitobe, which is the company that makes PhoneGap, and they're building a lot of new services around that as well. So everyone's putting money into it. So the other part here, of course, is the way that people look at it. Like from one of my favorite South Park episodes, and they have their business plan. And step 1 is collect all undercuts. Step 2, no idea. And step 3 is profit. And that pretty much sounds like most business plans I've come across. So the idea here is, please play around with HTML5, but make sure why you're doing it. Like you're aiming for a better user experience or something, not just doing it for, okay, it's the new hype word, I'm going to do it for the sake of it. And it's also about trying new things and seeing things from a new perspective. Like the Berlin Symphonic Orchestra, they put macro cameras into their instruments. This is the inside of a violin. And just creating new worlds by looking from a different perspective. And that's all it takes. And you can fail. It's okay. Hopefully not this bad, but you can fail, and that's okay. The whole point is that it's so much better to try something and fail, because you're going to learn something from that instead of just not doing anything. And I'll let you read this if you haven't seen it. So the point here, of course, is that you find anything you learn, share it on the web. Share code on GitHub, take part in discussion forums, or blog about it or something. The biggest problem usually you have something like this, and then Denver Coder 9 has replied to himself saying, "Don't worry, I found a solution," and then nothing more, right? And we don't want a web like that. We want a web where you share what you actually found. So instead of fighting and should we have semicolons in JavaScript or not, or very important discussions like that, we can actually put it into helping each other and moving forward together. So that's it for part 1. Thank you.